Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows, giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America. It just might be the greatest sports franchise in the history of sports. A place where legends are made, and there's always something to talk about. Get ready to immerse yourself in pinstripes. Start Spreading the News, hosted by Paul Semendinger and E.J. Fagan, a couple of doctors with a prescription for Yankee fever. And now, here's Dr. Paul Semendinger and Dr. E.J. Fagan. Get ready to start spreading the news.
All righty here. Welcome, everybody, to Monday night, 9 p.m., the time when you will always find the Start Spreading the News podcast. Of course, the Start Spreading the News podcast is part of Start Spreading the News, the greatest, the most wonderful, the most fantastic Yankee site out there. And a reminder that we are brought to you by Artemisia Publishing, a traditional publisher located in the good old USA in New Mexico. They have a wide variety, a huge genre of great books, including many, some written by me, about baseball and the Yankees. So check out apbooks.net. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the great, the brilliant, the wonderful E.J. Fagan.
Hi, Paul.
EJ, how
was
are
your
you?
Thanksgiving?
My Thanksgiving was wonderful. How about yours?
Wonderful. I've been cooking Thanksgiving, I think, for 16, 17 years. I think this time I nailed it. I think I got it. I got it perfect this time. Had a crowd of 12 people, and it went off well. So
that's awesome.
Wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yes, we got to see the babies, and whenever we see the babies, that's great news and happy news and the most wonderful news of all. So you didn't look it up, right? I said something to you before.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, good. Because I need your immediate reaction to something that my son Ethan, who does write for Start Spreading the News, and he's our technical guy behind the scenes always, but he just told me about this as I was coming home from my college class, so I haven't even had much time to digest it. But there is this thing called the Golden at Bat. And it seems that Rob Manfred claims there's buzz, this is from Sports Illustrated, around the Golden at-bat rule among the MLB owners. Rob Manfred continues to look for ways to spice up Major League Baseball. This is reporting from Ryan Phillips at Sports Illustrated from 22 minutes ago or so. There are a variety of rule change ideas that are being talked about out there. One of them was a little buzz around it at the owners' meeting. The idea of a golden at-bat, Manfred says. Most people haven't heard of a golden at-bat, but the basic concept is that a team could choose one at-bat in every game to use its best hitter, regardless of where they are in the lineup. So say if the New York Yankees had the bases loaded and 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth, they could bring Aaron Judge to the plate, even if it wasn't his turn in the order. It would be a one-time replacement, not a substitution like a pinch hitter. E.J. Fagan. Thoughts, reaction on the golden at-bat?
I love it.
I hate it. Oh, no.
So
no.
Here, baseball's got a weird dynamic where it's the only time, think about any other sport, in basketball, in football, in hockey, at the last moment of the game, when you have the peak drama, the best player has the ball, right? You give Michael Jordan the ball with 30 seconds left to go, and he's going to score the point. In baseball, that you don't have that. It's just wherever the batting order is.
Yes, that's great.
And so it's kind of, sometimes you have this big, amazing at bat, and Aaron Judge is 5 batters away, and he's never going to be a part of it or a part of that game. I love it. I honestly think that I wish that you could go even further. I wish, for example, for the 9th inning, you could start the batting order wherever you want. Something like that. I think that players like Aaron Judge should be there at kind of those key moments. I think it'd be dramatic and fun. I think it's great. Let's do it.
No,
and frankly, it's great for the Yankees because Aaron Judge would be, the guy.
No, it might be great for the Yankees now, but it might not be great for the Yankees in 4 years when Aaron Judge stinks. I mean, supposedly, right? Or in 10 years when there is no Aaron Judge and they don't have a player like that. And then you have to face, I don't know, Barry Bonds Jr.
Yeah, well, that means that the greatest stars in our sport are going to shine. And maybe the Yankees should pony up money for guys like Juan Soto.
Well, they should. And that's a whole different argument and discussion. But all right, so Aaron Judge, if he homers 1 home run every 15 at-bats or so, or 1 home run every 10 at-bats, that gets him, another 180 at-bats or 161 at-bats over the course of the year. So then he gets, another 18 home runs. So now you have guys hitting 80 home runs in the season, obliterating the baseball record book. No, it's horrible. It's terrible. It's horrible.
Records are meant to be broken, right? And we know
that records are all the right way. The right way.
But things change. We know things change.
More at
right? We know that Coors Field batting averages aren't real, right? We know that that college batting averages records are gone now that they're using different bats. Like that's how the record books work. In fact, that's how every other sport works. Where it's just like things change, like the 3-pointer is a thing in basketball now. So the records change.
Baseball's made all those changes. They made 1 million. They have a pitch clock. They have bigger bases. They have
keep making them. There's not enough offense in the sport right now, and that's what Manfred's trying to solve. The excitement, right now, baseball is kind of boring to watch if you're not a super fan.
Now batting, Bugs Bunny. Now batting, Bugs Bunny. Now batting, Bugs Bunny.
Once per game, you can call back your best player. And I think that's very normal in sports, right? Of just playing with a short bench when things are late. I don't know. I like the idea of
Shaquille
having
O'Neal
that guy.
Gets fouled with 2 seconds left, so you have somebody else do the free throws.
No, because he's Shaquille O'Neal, right? But but
he wasn't he wasn't a good free throw shooter.
But imagine if the rules of basketball said that you can only play for 5 minutes at a time, and Shaquille O'Neal's 5 minutes are up, and so you got to send the guy off the bench to play, right? Like that's what we have in baseball, and
that's
I think
the way the game is played. It's unique. It's different.
Yeah, there's lots of uniqueness to games, right? Like I think if you're constructing baseball today, you would have a rule.
All right, here's the question: do you play Monopoly? You ever play Monopoly?
Oh, it's been a while, but I'm familiar.
Yeah, I haven't played in a long time, but you played Monopoly. Mm-hmm. Do you put money in free parking? No, of course not, because that's the game doesn't get money in free parking. That's what it is. It's putting money in free parking.
Yeah, but if the game was more fun if you put money in free parking, then change the game, right? Like the point of the game is to have fun.
You play with people and they do. You get $400 if you land on go, and they make all these different rules, and it ruins the game.
I think broadly speaking, except for the extra inning rule, I think the Manfred rules have been broadly have really improved the game. You have more running and stealing thanks to all the base running rules. I think the pitch clock has improved the pace of the game, which just makes it much easier to watch. I think they should keep playing with these games. These rules. I really wish they would get very aggressive about finding ways to make it harder to strike guys out. To me, that's the problem of baseball right now. Is it's strikeouts.
All right. So what if we had those wiffle ball bats that are really fat? You had the wiffle ball bats that were yellow, and then you had like the off-brand thing that the big. Can we let batters have those?
No, but that's frankly, if you ever watch wiffle ball, there's more strikeouts than there are in regular baseball, right? Wiffle ball, you can really kill a ball, and wiffle ball is a different game. I watched Blitzball on the John Boy channel. It can be kind of fun to watch. Look, I think that I think that there is a crisis in baseball right now that it's not fun for non-fans. And if it's only fun to watch, if you're the kind of person who could watch a 13 strikeout game and really enjoy it, you're in trouble. Because you're not going to be adding new fans to the sport, and you're going to start losing out. And I think that's why Manfred has been trying to change rules. And I think for the most part, they're good ideas. All right, so I think this is not as important as trying to limit strikeouts, right? To me, that is still they have to find some way to stop this arms race, which is favoring pitchers over the years, because they're still going to throw 98, 99, right? Like you're not going to stop pitchers from throwing hard, but you can find ways to make it easier on batters. Like I've talked about the strike zone being too big.
So
if you actually call the textbook strike zone, you're okay.
I was reading lots of comments in the couple of minutes after Ethan dropped this terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. After Ethan dropped this terrible idea on me that he read about, one person in a comment somewhere, I was scanning all over the internet seeking information. Can then the defense at any point say, at once in a game, Aaron Judge is due up? Nope. Sorry. Aaron Judge won't bat now. We're going to make you send up Garrett Cole.
Okay, so this reminds me of a quote from Stan Lee, the Marvel Comics creator. And Stan Lee would get asked some version of the same kind of dumb question every time he went to a convention, in the 90s. And some kid would ask him who would win in a fight, Spider-Man or the Hulk. And Stan Lee's answer would be, well, whoever I want to win. I'm writing the book.
Well, I agree with that. As an author, I agree with that. I was just teaching classes in Ridgewood High School about that when you're the author, you can make up the rules. Right.
And so I'm sure, you could find a way for Spider-Man to beat the Hulk. And I want to write the rules to make baseball fun. And right now, the problem is not that the Garrett Coles of the world aren't doing well enough. Right. You can't bring in a guy to strike out the side in the 7th inning. The problem is that the offense is not winning. Offense is struggling and losing the arms race against pitchers. And I don't think it's realistic that they're going to catch up. I just think we've kind of hit the limit of what batters can do. And pitchers are just now all learning to throw 95 plus miles an hour with killer sliders and changeups, right? I mean, it's really hard out there. And I think it's one reason why you see so few batters succeeding these days. You just see a lot of players kind of doing the Aaron Hicks job that we saw this year, and just not playing very well. And I think you want to solve that. And maybe one way to solve that is to make sure the good guys bat a little more often.
Who had the greatest offensive season in the history of baseball through 2022?
It was Aaron Judge, right?
And who had the greatest offensive season in the history of baseball through 2024?
It was Aaron Judge.
So it seems to be working.
It's the greatest because of the context, right? It's not just because the stats on paper were the greatest. They were good. They weren't as great as many others that we can point to. But Manny Ramirez would routinely put up numbers pretty similar to what Aaron Judge did this year, but in a different context. It was a higher offensive environment. And Aaron Judge is unique, right? I mean, I would love it if we had 10 Aaron Judges in the sport, because I think it'd be a lot of fun to watch. We don't, and we're not going to have another one for a while. I mean, Judge and Ohtani really are doing something very special.
And Soto, that's enough. And
Soto, there's a handful of guys who have been able to thrive in this environment. But the typical baseball player, right? The Anthony Volpes of the world, the Anthony Santander's of the world, are struggling to get on base. And it's hard to watch in a ballpark specifically. I just kind of don't enjoy going to a major league game and watching, strikeout, walk, strikeout, ball in play, pop up, done, right? Like that takes a long time. It's not fun. You can't see it on, in the ballpark. I can appreciate a pitcher's duel with a lot of strikeouts on TV, especially if it's like a high stress kind of playoff game. But to me, like you got to add some more kinetic energy to the sport. And I think the whatever you call the golden at bat sounds like a way to add some kinetic energy to the sport.
Oh, EJ, we agree so often, and this
not this one,
no, not at all. Oh my goodness, it's a horrible idea. It's the worst idea ever. But we'll never agree on this one. So, and it's not going to happen. I hope. Oh my God, you're going to root for it. You're going to write articles.
Sounds like it's going to happen. I mean, look, I think the next thing that they're going to implement is the strike zone. And I really wouldn't be shocked, just as we talked about a week or two ago when I saw it in the Arizona Fall League, if we see the automated strike zone come pretty soon. And we've seen in AAA that favors hitters a lot. You got an extra one run per game at AAA. Now, a lot of that came in the form of extra walks. I would hope that maybe there's an adjustment where just pitchers throw more balls in the zone and batters swing at more balls in the zone. To me, that's the ideal. And the AAA pitchers and hitters didn't really have an incentive to adjust because they knew they're going to, if they go to the majors, they're playing under a different rule set. But I think that that's going to be a pretty profound change, in part because the textbook strike zone is not what's called, right? A larger strike zone than that is what's called in practice, specifically outside pitches. And once pitchers are forced to, throw to the actual strike zone, I think that some of these problems will solve themselves, and maybe there won't be pressure for something like the golden at bat.
I hope not.
But I kind of like the golden at bat. I think it'll be fun.
All right, that's fun. It's good to disagree sometimes, CJ. I hate the idea. They're going to kill the sport. Oh, my goodness. All right. So anyway, let's get to the Hall of Fame. That's what we said we were going to talk about today.
We got a ballot.
We got a ballot. We have the Classic Hall of Fame. I'm just going to read you the name, and then you tell me if you think. Then I'll tell you what I think. We'll be interesting to see if we agree on these guys. The first guy who's up in the Classic Hall of Fame ballot, I think the voting is on the 8th, which is Sunday. Well, the results will be announced. I think that's Sunday. The first name is Dick Allen, Richie Allen. Is he a Hall of Fame?
We're going to the now we're looking at the committee ballots.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
I have no idea who he is.
So maybe we shouldn't.
I can tell you. I can talk about Tommy John, and that's about all I got on the.
Oh my goodness! All right, so this is way before your time. Fair enough. So all right, I will read you a quick thing that I wrote on Tommy John. Tommy John won 288 games. He has 62.1 WAR. On the Hall of Fame monitor, he ranks as the number 86th all-time starting pitcher. He had surgery, his wrist, that changed the sport and is named for him. He pitched 26 years. Yes, I think there is something praiseworthy about that kind of longevity. He has the most wins of any pitcher since 1890, not in the Hall of Fame. Now, I wrote a longer article that ran today. This is a summary of all the people on the ballot. That's what I was going to use for this discussion. But then we can go to the other. We could quickly do the other people, the biggest names or whatever, on the regular Hall of Fame ballot. But anyway, I say Tommy John belongs in the Hall of Fame. Do you agree?
I agree. I think on pure baseball terms, he's in, right? He's a 62 win player. You just quote all the other stats. I'll add, if you read Jeff Passan's The Arm, he talks about Tommy John and the first Tommy John, the surgery that was named after him. And this surgery has become absolutely essential to the modern game. It's the reason why almost every pitcher you can name is still playing. I don't think they would throw slower or with less spin without Tommy John surgery. I think we would just have very, very short careers for pitchers, and that'd be kind of sad to watch. It was a courageous thing that Tommy John did. This was not a proven surgery at the time. It was an experimental surgery that the doctors didn't know if it would work. And he said, do it. Let's do it. Let's see if we can fix my elbow. And they did. And that's why the surgery is named after him. It's not just that he was the first baseball player to do it or the first major league player to do it or just the most famous guy to get it early on. No, he actually, put his arm on the line to test out an experimental surgery, and it changed the game. And I think on that alone, I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame on top of the fact that he's a great baseball player. I
agree. All right. So we agree on Tommy John. So if Tommy John were allowed to come into the game to pitch at a different point as the golden I don't even know what I'm saying. All right. So here, I'm just going to pick some names from the 2025 ballot. Guys we probably haven't talked about before. We've talked about guys like Mark Burley. You've always been a little bit higher on him, a lot higher on him actually than I have. But I want to go to some other guys. Some guys like CC Sabathia. Is CC Sabathia a Hall of Famer?
He is. I think he's absolutely a Hall of Famer. He's got over 60 wins. I think he's got the peak value that you can argue that Burley and Pettit didn't have. There was a point in time when CC Sabathia was an absolute ace. I think about that 2008 season before he came to the Yankees. He was traded to, I think, the Brewers mid-season, and pitched every fourth day and was incredible and was really important to them. I love CC Sabathia. I miss CC Sabathia. I wish they'd make him a broadcaster because he's the best. And I think he's an easy Hall of Famer, and I think he's going to go in as a Yankee. So that's your next Yankee Hall of Famer. Kind of cool.
All right. So here's the next name, and I'm going to ask then a question next that I don't think you're going to like because I don't think you like questions like this, but I'll ask it. We'll have some fun with it, or else you'll say I don't like the question, and then we'll move on. But anyway, Ichiro.
Oh, yeah. Look, Ichiro is going to go down as a legendary player. Like one of those players that you talk about for generations, his uniqueness, his fame, and how good he was. I mean, we're talking about a guy who didn't make the majors until I think he was 27 years old and still had 3,000 hits, was an incredible defensive player, was a great speed guy, just a unique baseball player, a player that we might never see again of that type. And I think it's incredible. And, if he had debuted when he was 21 in the majors, his stats would be even better. But I think he doesn't even need that caveat to be in the Hall of Fame. I think he'll be a unanimous decision.
That's the question I was going to ask, and I didn't think you'd like.
We've broken the bubble on being unanimous, right? So
yes,
let's just do it. I mean, Sabathia might be. I don't think so. He's kind of, I think it'd be a little out of place for him to be unanimous, but Ichiro should be the easiest decision ever. Easier than Mariano. I think Jeter, had one vote short.
Jeter was, yep.
And I think we've had one or two unanimous since then.
No, just Mariano.
There is Mariano. No argument against Ichiro, right?
That's what I was going to ask you.
There's no off-field stuff, right? He's an incredible guy. There's no on-field stuff. If you don't think Ichiro Suzuki's a Hall of Famer, I don't know, man. I don't know if you were watching baseball. Ichiro, you could say, look, he had a long career. He played very late into his life and wasn't very good for the last 5-6 years. But he was so good before that it just doesn't matter.
Agreed on every front. I had a discussion on Start Spreading the News a couple of years ago with I don't know, somebody, and I don't even remember who, but we were discussing, I was saying, when Ichiro comes up, he's got to be unanimous. There's no reason not to vote for him. And I don't remember why we disagreed on that, but there was a disagreement, and I'm glad we agree on that. Because
I'll tell you,
why
I don't watch a lot of
Ichiro?
I don't watch a lot of Hall of Fame speeches, but I'm looking forward to Ichiro and Sabathia back to back. That's going to be pretty cool.
All right, so pick a name. Those are the two names that jump out at me that I think
Let's talk about Felix.
Felix Hernandez is an interesting one. I talked about that with my son Ethan a couple of weeks ago. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
It's funny. If you had just asked me, don't look at his stats, just tell me right now, is Felix a Hall of Famer? 100%, right?
Yes.
I would have said, yeah, of course. Felix Hernandez was the cream of the crop for a decade. But then you realize he retired at 33 and wasn't good the last couple of years. He was a real high peak player. It reminds me of Johan Santana's Hall of Fame case. He's only got 49 or 50 wins total.
Yeah, 49.9 on Baseball Reference.
I think he's probably going to be someone who eventually makes it. But I think you have to reconceptualize what you mean by a pitcher. How you evaluate pitching in the modern day. I mean, especially today, pitchers are not throwing nearly as many innings. They're not putting up big win totals, big WAR totals. And unless you want no pitchers in the Hall of Fame, you got to lower your standards. Now, Felix didn't completely overlap with that new era, right? I mean, it wasn't crazy for pitchers to go 200 innings during most of his career, but he's kind of on the cusp of that. He's one of those guys that's kind of getting close to the modern era of baseball where this just doesn't happen anymore. So I think he gets in eventually. Certainly not a first ballot. I also think he's one of those guys that, maybe writers who aren't really looking at the stats easily go, yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. And those that are actually look at his numbers go, we haven't put Pettit in, we haven't put Burley in. Those guys had much better career numbers than Felix. Now, Felix had that peak value, but there's something to be said by, playing into your 30s, and he didn't. He Hall of Fame cases usually won in your 30s. And if Felix had, say, Sabathia's decline, I think he's in. Sabathia had, the last 5 years of his career, he wasn't great, but he was still a good enough player to stick around. And Felix is not that. So yeah, I'll tell you, I did not realize how short his career was. In my mind, Felix was dominant for a very, very long time. And he had some great numbers. He also, if you look at his dominance, I'm looking at his stats, there's not a lot of black ink there.
No, I was just looking at that myself. Led the league in WAR once, wins once, win-loss percentage once, ERA twice, games started twice, innings once.
Yeah, I mean, 4 wins, 6 wins, 7 wins, 3.5, 5, 6.4, 4.5, right? He's not as good as I remember. Maybe that's some of the ballpark adjustment at Safeco Field. I think he put up a lot of innings. if I just looked at his like 2008 to 2014 stretch, that's a dominant stretch. He's probably the best pitcher in baseball during those specific seasons. But he's not ever, except for that one 2010 season, the best pitcher in baseball. So, I think he might eventually get in as we kind of remember what it's like to be a pitcher today. But he's below the modern day standard, right? He would be one of the worst modern pitchers to starters to get into the Hall of Fame. I think John Smoltz is the other one that kind of stands out, if I remember correctly. All the others have been pretty clear cases, actually. And the Hall of Fame has actually had pretty stingy standards for pitchers. So yeah, it's going to be that's going to be the one. That's the vote total I look for first when the ballot comes out in January. It's like, where's Felix? What number is he at?
All right, you have another guy.
Let's see. I mean, there's some other guys we can talk about that I know aren't getting in, but Pedroia is a fun case.
Oh God. Oh,
another short career guy, right?
Yeah, I have not looked up his career. He was given the MVP one year where I don't believe he deserved it.
Let's look at the 2008 MVP. He, let's see, by wins. He deserved it by WAR. First in WAR that year. Alex Rodriguez was just behind him in one of A-Rod's kind of okay Yankee years, 2008. Yeah, look, Pedroia was a fun batter. One thing I love about baseball, we talk about this a lot, is how different body types can succeed.
Yes.
And Pedroia was that guy. He was short, didn't look particularly athletic, had a bit of a chipmunk look to him, but he had this great short swing. He was fun to watch, even if he was a Red Sox, right? I mean, he was just one of those players.
No, he was one of those guys. I did not hate Manny. I did not hate Big Poppy. And I don't hate anybody, but Dustin was not a guy I could warm up to. He was an annoying opponent. Say again?
I had some hate for some of those Red Sox for a while. I mean, look, Pedroia, if he had a longer career, I think he would be in, but he didn't. He was done basically by his age 33 season. But he was a good batter. He wasn't a great batter. He was a well above average batter. Played good defense at second, and won a bunch of World Series for Boston. So I think he's going to be remembered well. I think he's the reason why Monument Park exists for the Yankees and jersey retirements exist and all of that. But I don't think he's getting into the Hall of Fame. He'll get votes, but I don't think he'll get many.
Good. I don't think Dustin Pedroia is a Hall of Famer. All right.
I want to talk about the University of Illinois Chicago's own Curtis Granderson. On the Hall of Fame ballot. Yeah. Our one baseball alumni, Curtis Granderson. I teach at the University of Illinois Chicago for anybody who's not following. There was a period. I remember I'm looking at his 2007 season for Detroit. Incredible fun season by Curtis Granderson. He had 23 home runs.
7.6 WAR.
7.6 WAR, yep. 23 triples,
Mm.
which is a very Detroit number, right? You can hit triples in that ballpark. 38 doubles, 26 stolen bases. So I believe he was the only person ever to go 2020 from that season. That was cool. That was fun. Curtis Granderson is a fun player. I think he's a great human being. I love that he's now doing a lot of broadcast stuff and games, and I know he does a lot of stuff actually back at UIC. We've named our baseball field after him. He doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but I loved him as a Yankee. I thought the Yankee Stadium, he had a great Yankee Stadium swing, hit 40 home runs 2 seasons in a row. It was that weird kind of space between the 2009 World Series team and the downfall, the Yankee, the end of that era of the Yankees that really fell apart in 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. Granderson put those teams in the middle. They were fun. They had a chance to win the World Series and they didn't. But I really loved Curtis Granderson. Was always one of the best players in those teams, and I loved watching him.
Well, yeah, he had those back-to-back 40 home run seasons, and awesome. They were fun. Yeah, and he was a fun player to root for and a good guy. And it's always fun to root for a good guy, but not a Hall of Famer.
Correct. Anyone else on this is the last time we're going to talk about some of those guys. Russell Martin, Canadian.
Yeah, he was a couple of Yankee catchers on the ballot. Brian McCann's there.
I thought Martin was an underrated catcher. I always thought he felt like a catcher behind the plate, like a guy who could run a team, could run a game, played longer than you would have expected. His numbers, they're not Hall of Fame worthy, but for a catcher, they're getting kind of close. Like, I don't think he would be the worst catcher in the Hall of Fame. Catchers, they don't play as much, they don't play as long. And so, once you're up above 40 wins as a catcher, you have to start that discussion. Jorge Posada is one of those guys too that I think deserves it. I think if we had framing numbers on Martin, I think they come in pretty good. I think Martin was one of those guys, probably in Posada, not so good. I liked Russell Martin as a catcher. He was the guy who immediately succeeded Posada. So as Posada's career was winding down, they went and got him and Jose Molina. And I always love those. So that same team as Curtis Granderson. So I have fond memories of the 2010, 2011 Yankees.
If you look on the Jaws list and you rank the catchers by WAR, the top 11 by WAR are all Baseball Reference WAR, are all in the Hall of Fame. The 12th guy is Thurman Munson. He's not there, 46.1.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, should be.
The next guy is Gene Tennis, who really didn't play a whole lot of catcher. I'd have to break it apart again. He's listed as a catcher, but he played other positions. He played like less than 1,000 games as catcher. Then you get Buster Posey. Then Bill Freehan. He'll get in. Bill Freehan. Wally Shang, who was a great Yankee and a great Red Sox in the 20s and into the teens. Then you get Posada, Jason Kendall, Yadier Molina, Darryl Porter, Jim Sundberg, Charlie Bennett, Lance Parrish, J.D. Real Muto, and there's Russell Martin next at 28.
So probably not a Hall of Famer, but not far away.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is he's not that far away.
Yadier Molina's getting in.
Yeah. Bill James.
Yadier was a better defender than Martin, and there's probably some not being caught by statistics there. But yeah, I think I think the Hall of Fame voters underrate catchers, and they shouldn't. They should give catchers a lower bar than other positions.
Third base too. Third base is very unrepresented and unrepresented.
Yeah, it took Scott Rowland forever to get in, which is ridiculous.
And Grettles is the next guy on the list who isn't in. And I think he belongs in there, but that's a different story. But interesting. Somebody could, if you look at the Bill James Hall of Fame books and stuff, there's a guy named Ray Schalk who had 33 WAR, played between 1912 and 1929. And then there's Wally Shang, who had 48 WAR, who played between 1913 and 1931. He believes, Bill James, I don't know if it was tongue-in-cheek, but he believes that when they voted for Ray Schalk, they meant to vote for Wally Shang. They got the two guys mixed up because Wally Shang is the guy who really deserves it much more than Ray Schalk. So maybe someday Wally Shang will also get in. All right, so EJ, you wrote a great article. A year ago, I put out a big article on Start Spreading the News saying this is the year before 2024 for the Yankees to get Cody Bellinger. I thought if they got Cody Bellinger, he could play center field. Judge wouldn't have to. He'd be another lefty bat in the lineup. I thought he was going to continue his really solid play. And I also felt that he was insurance in case Anthony Rizzo couldn't play first base. You could put him there. And then if Dominguez or somebody else was ready, they could play the outfield or whatever. I thought Cody was, Bellinger was the great guy to get. The Yankees didn't get him. He's now supposedly on the trade block. And what are your thoughts? Should the Yankees get him a year later?
Yeah, I think that was probably had all those thoughts before Soto. Right, he was the guy to get.
No, it was actually after. It was after.
Even with Soto.
Yeah, it was post Soto.
Yeah, I think there's like budgetary reasons why that couldn't happen. He's getting paid. I think it was $29 million last year. I think Cody Bellinger is overpaid and a good fit for the Yankees, and that's a hard that's a hard problem to solve right there. He is not the bad version of himself that he was in for a couple of years. I think 2022, 2021, he just completely lost the ability to play baseball. That's what got him cut by the Dodgers. He was coming off, a couple of MVP level years. 2019, I think he was 18, one of those. He was the MVP. Really talented player, right? Had it all. Right? He was fast. He had power. He could hit for average. He had great contact skills. He lost all that for those 2 years, and then he goes to the Cubs. 2023, he has a big rebound year. StatCast thinks he got kind of lucky, that he was better but not great. He regained his contact skills but didn't regain his power skills, but had some really good bad ball luck and therefore was put together a really strong season. And then last year he took a step back. Both in the StatCast numbers, in those numbers, and in his on-field numbers. Still hits for lots of contact. He has a really high square up rate, but similar to guys like, say, Alex Verdugo, who has a really high square up rate. And like guys like Verdugo, it has a very low exit velocity. Walks about league average, still plays pretty solid defense in center field and really good defense at first base. But StatCast thinks he's a below average hitter. And there's some reason to believe that he got hurt by wind blowing in at Wrigley Field. There's some reason to believe that he would do better in a place like Yankee Stadium. He's only 29 years old. And the problem is that he's about a 2.5 win player, right? I think he had 130 games, 2.2 wins last year. So maybe if he's healthy, that's 2.5, maybe 3 if he rebounds. There's really nothing in his game log that suggests he got off to a slow start or anything like that. He's good, right? He's a left-handed hitter. The Yankees could use a guy who could play an average center field and hit well enough. Maybe you get Yankee Stadium. He would have hit 6 more home runs in last year. So maybe his power plays up a little bit there. He's got a real pull swing for a lefty. That's the case for Bellinger. And the problem is that he's getting paid, I think the number is 27.5. So he's getting 27.5 next year. And then he has a player option. If he exercises it, he still gets $5 million from his club. And then he becomes a free agent, or he gets paid $25 million. Which means basically if he's any good, he's going to exercise it. He's going to say, no, I can make more than $20 million in free agency. I'm going to go to free agency. And you're still on the hook for $5 million. So you're essentially paying him 32.5 this year. But if he's bad, he doesn't exercise it, and you're stuck with him, right? If he's not good enough to get a $20 million contract as a free agent, you're just stuck with a bad player. And he's been bad in the past, 2021, 22. I think it's a terrible contract. This is one of the worst contracts in baseball. And, except for guys who are just useless like DJ LeMahieu, those are really bad contracts. Anthony Rendon. This is a bad contract. And I think that's why the Cubs want to get rid of him. That's why they're willing to trade him. And I think that if you can make the money work, the Yankees are about as good of a fit as it gets. They need a center fielder. They could use a backup first baseman, though I think it's a waste. I don't think he's a good enough hitter that you would, unless someone takes a ridiculous amount of his money, I don't think it ever makes sense to play him at first base, except in the case of an injury. I think you can make it work. The Cubs need another starter. They just signed Matt Boyd, but I think they need one more. And I wonder if Marcus Stroman is interested. It would be of interest, right? You trade Stroman to the Cubs. He's another bad contract. The Yankees essentially would get rid of $18 million on your payroll for 2 seasons. Bellinger would, instead of being paid $32 million effectively, would be paid half that, or less than half of that. Stroman still has some value, so that makes sense. But I think that's kind of the move I would make. And I think that's a good trade. I think the Yankees are better off for that trade. I think Bellinger might be a number 2 hitter for you without Soto. By the way, I don't think none of this makes sense if Soto resigns. I don't think, because he'd be playing first base probably. That's just not worth it. So I think some of it makes sense. He's also just a really talented player. Maybe he rebounds. Maybe he does a Curtis Granderson and hits 40 home runs in Yankee Stadium. That's not crazy.
Didi Gregorius did something similar.
Yeah, Brett Gardner did it one year, right? That's not a crazy thing to think about. And even if he doesn't, he's a faster Curtis Granderson from, who's a little bit better.
He doesn't make sense if you bring back Soto.
What's that?
He doesn't make any sense if you bring back Soto to play center field, take the pressure off Dominguez, and then he plays first base.
Well, then Dominguez isn't playing. right?
No, he
I mean,
takes the pressure off. Like if Dominguez has a bad spring or whatever, and he has to go to the minor leagues, or he goes 0 for 73 to start the year or whatever, and they're like, he's just not ready. He's just not ready.
yeah, but
that could be.
Then you either have someone a backup infielder playing first base, or in this scenario, Dominguez is a AAA waiting for an injury, right? And to me, like I don't know, like that seems like a poor use of resources. And plus, if you pay Soto $40 million or 46 or more, we'll see how high this bidding goes. You gotta save money somewhere, and you're talking about a lot of money for Cody Bellinger.
Even if you trade Stroman.
Yeah, I mean, if you trade Stroman, I think if you trade Stroman, your basically entire budget is Bellinger and Soto. Maybe you can get like a reliever. You still need a first baseman. I mean, maybe Bellinger's playing first base in that scenario. You still maybe need a second baseman or however you want to handle that. And I think you need a couple of relievers personally. So, like, I don't think the money works otherwise. He is overpaid, right? Again, he's effectively a $32 million player this year, and he's just not that good.
But he's not signed long. He's only got 2 years left.
He does. So, but remember, it's a player option scenario.
Right.
So if let me center myself on camera here. So look, if he,
I felt all throughout the show you were a little crooked.
There you go. I'm just slowly moving over. Look, it's a bad contract because all the risk is on the team, right? If he's good, he opts out and he's gone. If he's bad, he sticks around. You got to pay him. And either way, you're paying him $32 million this year. That's why the Cubs are trying to trade him. That's why he's available. It's not that he's not a useful player to them. It's that they don't want to pay him that money and they want to spend that money elsewhere or pocket it.
All right, here's a trade that's not going to happen. But would this be a trade? I think Stanton's signed through when? 2027 or 2028?
4 more years, I think.
All right, so Bellinger's only got 2, right?
Yeah.
All right, so they wouldn't take Stanton.
No, and Stanton has no trade clause, do you remember?
I understand that, but I've always felt the no trade clause just says, give me some more money.
Well, yeah, but then you got to get more money. I think Stan's contract is worse than Bellinger's contract.
Okay.
So I don't see why the Cubs would take it on. I mean, Stan is owed 32, and then this isn't luxury tax money, so maybe you can get someone to take it, but 19, 15, $10 million, and then the Marlins are paid the buyout. So 32 next year, 19, 15. You know, maybe after this year you could trade Stanton at that kind of money, I think. Because the luxury tax hurts the Yankees, but not some other teams in some ways. Like, I don't think the Cubs are going to pay the luxury tax. But I would be surprised if you could trade him, even though, I also don't think he's as good as Bellinger. And so, because he's a DH only, he's really been kind of bad the last few years. So I don't think that's the kind of contract you would get. You'd have to get a really bad contract for Stan. That's why I said Mike Trout, because it's an awful contract. But I don't think that's happening. I think there's other ways you could clear money off the payroll for the Yankees. So like, there's, you could trade Nestor Cortez or something like that. But really the only tradable bad contract I think is Stroman's.
I don't disagree. So do you see Stroman gone?
I think so. So Matt Boyd just signed for $24 million.
Frankie Montas just signed for
36.
For a couple of years, right?
But those guys are guys that have they still have some talent, and so you can kind of dream on them. But they've been worse than Stroman. So and they're getting paid similarly. So I don't know. Maybe you have to take a little bit of Stroman's money because teams might be afraid that he's kind of losing it. But I think Stroman's a starter for the next couple of years somewhere. And if you could get him on a 2-year, $24 million contract, I think teams would do that as if you were a free agent. And then you could basically give that deal. So I still think that there's a world where Stroman's tradable. And the real question is just what team is looking for pitching in February. The Mets need 3 starters, right? Mm-hmm. Do they take Stroman? I don't know. I think it really depends on if you think Stroman's healthy. I mean, Stroman really didn't look very healthy by the end of last year. So I don't know. I maybe that when Stroman hurt his hip in 2023, that he kind of stopped being effective, just lost his fastball velocity, and if he can't get that back, maybe no team wants him.
Interesting stuff. So what else you have?
Did you see that Clay Holmes is getting interest as a starter?
No, I have not seen
any
of that.
And MLB Trade Rumors has a story on this. I mean, everybody saw what happened to Seth Lugo, right? And they said, hey, who's the next guy that we can take from being a reliever to a starter? And I guess Holmes is one of those guys. I'm skeptical. He's a 2-pitch pitcher, but also, I could picture him getting a lot of outs. But Seth Lugo has like 11 pitches. Like that's why that worked. Holmes never really struck me as a starter potential.
I saw an interesting that I think is deep down not really 100% fair, because Holmes, I don't think, was very good this year, but somebody put on Twitter, and I didn't watch the whole thing, but a whole series of clips on each of, or at least many of the times that Holmes blew a game. And he's like, this is how he blew this one. It was a ball that came off the bat at 22 miles an hour. And it was not, I mean, come on, that's not his fault. And here's a game he lost because Anthony Rizzo didn't charge the ball, and the guy got.
Yeah, he's the wrong pitcher for the Yankees, right?
Correct.
I mean, the Yankees had the worst.
He was trying to say he was better than he was, but I think if you break down almost any player to that type of level, that things are going to say, well, he hit that fly ball, it would have been gone, but it was raining.
Well, this is why we have stats, right?
I agree.
If I just bring up his StatCast page, like we'll get an answer. If he had an average defense and average luck, StatCast thinks he's an 80th percentile reliever, 3.29 ERA. That's good. It's not excellent. That's probably closer worthy, but not top tier of closers. I think that's probably why maybe his agent's trying to get him to advertise as a starter, because he probably isn't going to get $30 million as a closer. That's something like Tanner Scott's going to get. Tanner Scott might get more than that. But he wants more money than you might get as a middle reliever. And the way you do that is do what Seth Lugo did. Seth Lugo was a middle reliever who went back to the starting rotation. I don't know if that will work. I wish him all the best. If I'm a team like the Pirates or a team that doesn't really think they're going to contend next year, that's the kind of move I would make. I mean, it worked for the Royals. Didn't cost that much money. And, if it had failed, it's not that much money on the table. And it worked out really well. Seth Lugo almost won a Cy Young. Maybe Holmes could do that. I don't know. Does he have like a change up in his back pocket? Maybe.
Yeah, I doubt it.
He's a starter in college, I think. I think he actually came up as a starter through the minors, like every reliever.
I think that's it. You already have anything else for me?
We got some, Juan Soto stuff. Juan Soto bidding. Yankees had a low bid. They raised their bid. It's unclear. There was one report that the Yankees were bidding only $550 million, which was probably the lowest of the teams bidding for him. But we don't know if that was before they raised their bid. Mm-hmm. We also don't really know, like, if it's a number of years, an average annual value, opt-outs, whatever. Right? There's all sorts of things that they could be debating over right now. I was listening to, I think, John Heyman today, and basically what he said, Heyman is one of those guys who has a pretty good reputation for basically talking straight to Scott Boras about stuff and leaking whatever Boras wants him to leak, that all 5 teams are roughly the same financially. Maybe one of those teams they'll be around to bidding this week and they'll blow the other teams out of the water. But I think all the teams probably look at it and say, if we spend more than $600 million on this guy, that's a bad look. Like that's not good for baseball. It's not good for our team. It's going to hurt us for, roster construction. So they're all kind of end up around the same number, which is the number we've all thought he's going to end up in, mid to low 600s. And maybe some team adds a year, maybe some team gives him a second opt out when he's 32, who knows, right? Like all those are options. And I think we're just waiting. And I think it sounds like we're going to know pretty soon.
I heard by early next week, maybe by the time we go on.
Yeah, I hope so.
I have an article coming tomorrow morning where I say there's people out there that's like, he's so greedy. It's ridiculous. I don't like the way he's going about this. And I'm just saying,
what does that mean? What does that even mean? Well, it's either Soto gets the money or the Steinbrenners get the money. Right?
Or whoever.
There's no world where like we get the money. No one's given me $1 million because Soto settled for a small contract, right?
And he's a free agent. That's what he's supposed to do.
Yeah,
right?
His job is to capture all of his agent's job is to capture all of his surplus value. So for all of Soto's career, he has been underpaid, meaning he has been better than he has been paid. He was a rookie who won the World Series and was this incredible hitter and got paid, the league minimum. Even last year with the Yankees, got paid $30 million, and he was way better than that, right? Any team would have paid more than $30 million to get last year's Juan Soto. And in between, he was even more underpaid because he wasn't getting all that big arbitration money. And now the job is to say, every ounce of surplus value, you don't get any of it, right? I get it. And I'm going to go to the team that basically gives me 100% of that. And the team is just paying, paying full price for wins. And that's the reality. The other world in a fair labor market is that he's a free agent. When he turns 18, he can sign whatever contract he wants. But we don't do that in sports, or at least in baseball. And that's why, players are underpaid for the first half of their career. I think it'd be better for the game if Soto were paid, during his best seasons. Now Soto's going to get a lot of his money when he's not that good.
Right. But I don't see anything wrong with what he's doing. People are criticizing.
No, not at all. Not at all. That's his job, right?
That's correct. You're a free agent. Get as much as you can. And at the same time, they're saying, well, they're trying to draw a difference between him and Judge and him and Garrett Cole, and I don't see the difference. Garrett Cole's
you were a principal, right? Yes. Were you ever on the other side of a labor negotiation?
Only once.
Okay.
So I stayed out of that. Except
I'm a member of my faculty union. We negotiated a contract a few years ago. I went to all the negotiation sessions online, and I was listening to some of my colleagues basically call the people negotiating against us, bad names, right? Saying like these guys are greedy. They're trying to keep our wages down. Like, of course they are. That's their job.
Correct.
Our job is to get paid as much as possible, right? Their job is to pay us as little as possible, and eventually we'll come to an agreement. And there's a number that will make us happy that they can pay us. And wherever that line is, our job is to find exactly that line and no lower. And their job is to try to push that line down a little bit. That's just how this works.
Correct.
This is a business. This is
do
not.
You see a difference between Judge and Soto, or Cole and Soto? Because people are making like they're saying Soto's greedy, but Judge wasn't. How? I don't get it. I mean, look,
the Judge took offers from other teams. He had larger offers from the Padres and Giants, and he came to the Yankees. This is what do you want him to do? Take a pay cut? I don't think anything. I think, for example, Jose Ramirez took a pay cut to stay with Cleveland. Look, maybe he's happier for it, and good for him. But I don't think he's under any obligation to do that. These are not poor owners, right? These are some of the richest people on the planet, and they're rich because their father bought a baseball team a long time ago. That's why the Steinbrenners are billionaires. And the job of these players is to capture as much money that instead of it going into their pocket. There's no reason to believe that if the players were accepting less money, that say our ticket prices would be cheaper or our concessions would be cheaper. No, that's not how the economy works. They want to wring every dollar they can out of us. And the players who play, they want to wring every dollar out of the owners.
What? Is Juan Soto a Yankee right now?
No.
The Yankees already have their ticket prices for next year.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not going up. They're not going down.
Yeah. I mean, there's one exception. And that's Anthony Rendon, who clearly said, screw you. You gave me my contract. You can't take it back. And I don't care about this game anymore.
Right. But I'm not talking about Anthony Rendon.
But to me, like that's the one, like if you sign that contract, I think it is good for the players long-term. Like the reason why owners are willing to give those contracts to players to say, hey, for the rest of your career, you're guaranteed to make this money no matter how good you are, is that the players agree implicitly to try their hardest to play baseball. And I think when a player gives up on that and just says, hey, screw you, it's my money, that I have a problem with.
I do too.
Some of them can't play it anymore, and they still, like Steven Strasburg, for instance, right? Blew out his shoulder. The owner of the team wanted him to show up to spring training and like pretend to try. And he's like, I can't even lift my baby, right? My shoulder is gone. And got into a legal fight with him. And it was because the owner was trying to cut his contract, right? The owner was trying to say,
right. But in that case, he wrecked his shoulder.
Yeah.
Performing the duties of his job.
Yeah, and the team knew that was a risk, right?
Correct.
If let's say Juan Soto or whatever, let's say Juan Soto signs a big contract, but not that big. He signs a $200 million contract. The Steinbrenners aren't going to give him more money if he's better, right? That's not how that works. Nor should Soto give up money if he's not very good. Like when you sign that contract, everybody understands the risks. And again, I think the only time I think there's like a moral issue is if a player gives up, or if a team tries to screw a player, right? Like those are there should be an agreement there that you still have to work out, you still have to be competitive, and I think Soto is one of those guys that will be competitive until the day he dies, right? Like I have no concern about that whatsoever. I have no concern about Aaron Judge not doing his best, but there's going to be one day when Aaron Judge, like, his knee goes out and he's just not that good, and we shouldn't boo him because of that, because he's getting paid a lot of money. That's the reality of sports. Like, my knees hurt too. And I'm not out there playing in the outfield every day.
I've heard the criticism. Soto turned down a big contract from the Nationals. So he's allowed to do that.
He made a good decision, right? He's going to make a lot more money than that.
And people like Judge turned down a $230.5 million contract from the Yankees.
And then he hit 62 home runs.
And the narrative that whole year was he bet on himself. Look what he did. And look how he made so much more money. And then Juan Soto does the same thing, but bets on himself for years to get an even better contract. And somehow he's greedy. I just don't see the difference. He's a free agent. This is what happens. It's the same thing that happened with Reggie and Catfish Hunter and Dave Winfield and Jason Giambi and
LeBron James and Tom Brady. Like, this is just how this works. Look, these guys, I get it. He's getting paid millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars to play a kid's game. Like, I understand that how that, like, in like the grandest moral sense, feels weird, but he is an entertainer. I love watching Juan Soto play, and I pay a lot of money to watch players like Judge and Soto play, right? I have an MLB TV subscription. I go to games. I buy merchandise, right? Like I buy I watch ads, all that kind of stuff, and that they deserve a piece of that. And I think I'm happier because of the money I spend on baseball and the joy I get out of it. And I think that the people who give me that happiness deserve to be compensated.
100% agree. And I've also heard the argument, it wasn't like that a long time ago. I just put an article in the comments. I linked it from PBS, an American Experience article. Joe DiMaggio, after his second year, went to the Yankees and said, you have to pay me $40,000 a year. And the Yankees said to him, wait a minute, we don't even pay Lou Gehrig that much. And he's like, well, I guess Lou Gehrig's underpaid. You should pay me. Like, there was never a time. The difference was DiMaggio, if he doesn't sign with the Yankees could lowball him because he's either going to play for the Yankees or he wasn't going to play. So they had him over a barrel, but that didn't mean he wasn't, and he held out. That doesn't mean he wasn't.
I think I've recommended this book before on the show. There's a book called The Baseball Trust, which is a book on the history of baseball's labor issues. Basically, the antitrust question of baseball is all about labor. A labor lawyer is the baseball commissioner right now, and labor judges and labor senators have been baseball commissioners in the past. The history of baseball is about owners trying to pay players less. Now, back in Joe DiMaggio's day, they had the reserve clause, and so they were stuck, right? Like, basically, they were.
But it didn't mean he wasn't holding out trying to get more.
And so the way that they would do it is but they wouldn't be able to capture a lot of that value because they were, they were really at a disadvantage with the reserve clause. So they used to like barnstorm and stuff, right? Like that's how players made money.
Until it was outlawed.
I don't think that's right? I'd rather my baseball players focus on playing Major League Baseball, and then in the offseason they go train. I don't want them doing all sorts of other things to make money. So yeah, I think, I get it. It is cosmically weird that somebody is getting paid $46 million, is going to get paid $46 million to play baseball. But that he is worth it.
And he's making that kind of money for his team.
I don't turn on the TV for George Steinbrenner. I turn on just TV for Judge and Soto and Volpe
100%.
and all the rest, right? And so that they're the players they're the people I want to see be rewarded, and I want as little money as possible going to the owners that I think are just predatory. Right? I don't think they give us much. Every owner is now threatening to pull their stadium out of a city. Let's talk about that. I have a problem with that.
Yes.
But that's for another day.
It is. We went over an hour, EJ. So another great Monday. I want to thank you and glad you had a happy Thanksgiving. And we'll be back here again, hopefully, to talk about the Yankees re-signing Juan Soto next Monday night. Everyone, thanks for watching. Remember, we're brought to you by Artemisia Publishing. Oh, I was going to get there it is. Go to apbooks.net and check out their great selection of books. Have yourself a wonderful evening, everybody. Thank you for watching the Start Spreading the News podcast.